Hey, buddy, you want to smoke? I said, you want to smoke? Come on. You know you want to smoke. You know you want to flick that bick. Suck on that cancer stick. You want to smoke? You know you want to smoke. You want to taste that sweet, sweet flame. Just a little bit of nicotine. Take the edge off. Come on. You haven't had a cigarette in almost 30 minutes. You know that you want one. You know that you need one.
Okay, listen, buddy. I'm trying to meditate, and, please.
Hey, man, I'm just going to go have a cigarette. I thought you might want to have one.
Thanks. No, I'm good. Thanks.
Okay.
Peace.
Holy cow, Caleb. You really need to quit smoking, man.
Wah, wah, wah. Hello, everybody. Today's video is on how to quit smoking. I get asked this tons and tons, so I figured I would make a video and then I wouldn't have to keep saying it all the time. I could just go watch the video on not smoking. So, I smoked Camel non-filters for about, I don't know how long I smoked Camel non-filters, but I smoked for well over 20 years, probably closer to 30 years. I smoked Camel non-filters for the last probably 10 of those years, if not longer. And I quit about 6 years ago, or became a non-smoker about 6 years ago would be a better way of saying it, because I just haven't smoked since then. A couple of things I want to talk about today. First of all, I want to recommend a book, which I don't do very often, but there is a great book written on the topic by Alan Carr called The Easy Way to Quit Smoking. And what he does is he really breaks down the psychological process and the mental process. And we're going to talk a lot about dismantling that mental process. And he goes into great detail in that, much more detail than I can get into in this video. So I would highly recommend that book. You can find it on the internet, and you can probably find it on Amazon, I'm sure. Anyway, the key to quitting smoking is really observing the mind. The way that I did it is for about a month before I became a non-smoker, I would expand the period in between cigarettes. I would go from like an hour to 2 hours to 3 hours to 4 hours, and I would observe my mind and observe what happened in my mind from not smoking. Now, the reason that this becomes very, very important is because all the periods of time that we do have where we don't smoke for long periods of time, like we're on a plane or a train or at work or whatever, we're occupied with something else, or we try to occupy ourselves with something else. We try not to think about it. Well, the key to this is to actually think about it, to rest our mind on that, what goes on inside of our brain when we don't have a cigarette. It's very, very, very important. And the reason for it being important is there's two things that actually go on. The first is the physical withdrawal symptoms from nicotine. The physical withdrawals, however, don't last very long, and they're akin to hunger pains, so they're not all that intense. It's just, the feeling of being hungry. What happens next is the psychological panic, the feeling that something terrible is going to happen to us if we don't smoke. That is psychological, has nothing to do with the physical effects of nicotine. And that's the part we need to observe, and that's the part we need to dismantle. And we also, key thing is to recognize when that physical craving turns into that psychological panic. That moment is the moment where we have control. So expanding the period of time in between cigarettes and observing what happens as we lengthen that period of time is really, really crucial. And it's interesting because I was just listening to Panchong Rinpoche, one of my teachers, talk about anger and talking about resting in the mind. Like when anger arises, we observe it, we rest our mind on anger, and when we do that, the anger begins to dissipate, because anger is irrational usually. And so if we rest our mind on it, then it dissipates like a prank sting, like a child prankster, who's sneaking up to do some kind of thing, and then we catch it, and we catch the child, and the child's like, oh, I'm not doing nothing. The brain will do the same thing. So if we rest our mind on that panic, the illogical aspects of that panic will begin to reveal itself, and then we begin to dismantle it. We begin to dismantle that panic. A great example of this is when I was, going through this period of time of not smoking. I was on public transportation and coming home from work, and one of the thoughts that this panic threw at me was, what if you're really a serial killer, and the only thing stopping you from killing all these people is nicotine? My mind actually created that thought, and I laughed out loud. I'm on public transportation, and I just start laughing because it was hilarious. But that's what happens when you begin to shine the light on these panic thoughts. You begin to, because your mind begins to try to justify this panic, and it will come up with all kinds of crazy scenarios. And so if we begin to observe this panic, begin to rest our mind on it, become mindful of it, we can then begin to dismantle it. It's very, very, very important to do that. So going with this, I would highly recommend to begin to do some kind of mindful meditation. And it could be, you don't have to go and join a Zen center or anything, but 5-10 minutes of just paying attention to your breathing, and will help this process become much easier, because it'll help you become a little bit more mindful. So 5-10 minutes of breath in, breath out, breath in, breath out, breath in, breath out, and then expanding that time in between cigarettes, and observing the panic. The next crucial thing is to recognize when the physical withdrawals become the psychological panic. There is a moment when that shift happens, and we need to be able to observe when that moment happens, and that's part of the reason why we want to become mindful in these long periods of not smoking. The next thing that really helped me to dismantle the kind of myth that I had built up around smoking is to really analyze who decided to smoke. I mean, when I say that, who decided to smoke, your obvious answer is, well, I decided to smoke. Yes, but not this I. What I mean by that is, if I held up a picture of me at the age that I started smoking and held up a picture of me now, it would be very difficult, unless you knew me, to know that these were both the same person. Because I was so young when I began to smoke. I was a child when I began to smoke, a child that wanted to be cool, a child that wanted to fit in, a child filled with all these childlike insecurities. That is the person that decided to smoke, and then the habit took over. Now, the person now, the Caleb now, would not decide to smoke, because I haven't. Since I became a non-smoker, I have not decided to smoke anymore, because why would I? It's not something that I need to do. That's very, very important to understand, and it's also important, and it helps to dismantle that panic, because that panic is that child's panic, or that younger version of your panic, that I won't be accepted, I won't be cool, I won't fit in. That's, if you really begin to dismantle that panic, you'll hear that immature voice coming through it. And so it's really crucial to analyze that and to kind of pick that apart. So yeah, just think about when you decided to smoke and the circumstances surrounding it, and what made you continue it. The other thing about smoking is what it does to our body physiologically. It messes with our sugar. It messes with our sugar a great deal, and so if you've smoked for a long period of time, you've essentially become a nicotine-dependent diabetic in a weird way. It messes with sugar and insulin and all of that stuff. So part of the reason that people gain weight when they quit smoking is, one, that again, nicotine withdrawal feels like hunger pains. And the second one is our body doesn't know how to regulate sugar properly. And so we think that we're hungry when actually what's happening is our blood sugar is off. takes about a month for our blood sugar to learn how to re-regulate itself and to get back to normal levels. So it's very, very important to become aware of that. And what I did was I did a lot of fruit juices. I did a lot of natural sugars that were easily digestible and easily accessible to the body. Candy and things like that, processed sugar, in other words, don't do the same thing. They don't have the same. They don't work the same way. They give you these extreme highs and lows, and and in my experience, kind of increase the cravings for more and more and more. So I would do smoothies and fresh fruit. I did about 3 smoothies for a day for the first month that I quit smoking, and it helped regulate the sugar, and so I didn't experience that feeling of being hungry all the time. It's very, very important to understand that when you're quitting. So this is the thing. It's increase the period between cigarettes, observe the mind, what happens, find that moment when the physical craving becomes panic. Begin to dismantle that panic using logic. Recognize the adolescent, the immature nature of that panic, because it comes from the immature person that decided to smoke to begin with. Realize also the physiological things that are going on in the body. Oh, speaking of which, it only takes 48 hours for nicotine to leave the body. So after 48 hours, if you're experiencing cravings, they're mental cravings. They're not physical cravings. It's important to understand that, because that's when you, again, can gain control. If you're addicted to nicotine, you can't control the physical cravings until after that 48 hours. But after that 48 hours, you can absolutely control the mental cravings. That's when you can take hold of it and dismantle that panic and become mindful of the thinkings that go behind it. And the last thing that I want to say is, during this month, when you're kind of increasing the period in between cigarettes, I also want you to take note of the times when you want to smoke and what's going on. The reason I say this is because when I decided to quit smoking, I realized that part of the reason that I smoked was because I was an introvert. I am an introvert, and that social situations made me uncomfortable. And so it helped to have something in between me and people. And so I literally had a smoke screen. I would have the smoke screen in between me and them, something that I could hide behind, kind of be confident with, and so I would find, and also it gave me an exit strategy. Like if I was in an uncomfortable situation, I'd go, I need to go out and smoke or whatever. And it would gave me that time. So I realized that the child decided to smoke because of wanting to fit in. The adult continued smoking because I used it as a crutch to put something in between me and other people. So in realizing that, I began to replace that with something else. So I would pick up my camera, because my camera could serve the same function. It was something that was physically in between me and other people. It kind of put me in that observer role. And it also gave me an excuse. It's because I could go, oh wait, I see something very interesting over there, I'm going to go shoot it. And so I replaced this bad habit, with this more positive habit that served the same function. And also as a result of understanding exactly what I was using it for, it helped me to not need it anymore. I mean, so now I really don't feel like I need something in between me and other people. And I don't feel like I have to make an excuse to leave. I can just be like, I'm overwhelmed, I gotta go. So that's another thing to pay attention to. So I want you to pay attention to what happens in between cigarettes, and I also want you to pay attention to what's happening when you do smoke, and what need it's fulfilling for you, because it will probably be different than the need that it fulfilled for me. So anyway, think about all this stuff. Give yourself this time to explore your brain and explore your habit. Replace it with a good positive habit, and become a non-smoker. And good luck with all that. If you have any questions or comments, please leave them in the comments below. Email me at calebstorms@gmail.com. If there's something that you want to hear me talk about, please shoot me an email, and I'll add it to my list. So thank you very much. Have a good day. Peace out, yo.